a special good morning to you and happy World Press Freedom Day to all the media practitioners in Cameroon and around the world. You are welcome to today's edition of the program, the weekend edition, of course, that happens to be Friday, the 3rd of May 2024. On this program, we focus on the newspapers as we'll be back to give you what's they're saying. Welcome back to the program. If you are just joining us, you are on to Press Brief on High Television. For presentation, I am a thing Larry Kevin Sabot. Let's start off with the Guardian Post. The Guardian Post of Christian Guy reports on World Press Freedom Day. Says Press Freedom, the dark side of journalism in Cameroon. In that said publication, as the paper highlights some 6 journalists who were killed, or 5 of them who were killed under gruesome circumstances, and one who is still incarcerated at the Kondegi Maximum Security Prison in Yaoundé. Esther Oman clinches another International Peace Promoter Award. We move on to the Man of the Week for the Guardian Post newspaper that happens to be Fon Angwafo, the foot of Mancon in the Northwest region. We move on to something else this time around with Informa 10 for today. Talks of electoral registration. Ministry of Territorial Administration and ELECAM evaluates the operation of registration in Cameroon by ELECAM. Get to read more on Informa 10 for today. Cameroon Tribune for this morning report on extractive industry in the country, the destiny of Cameroon that has been attained. You won't find more on Cameroon Tribune for today. World Press Freedom Day addressing climate change crisis. You can find details on that set paper for today. The National Bilingual Daily for this morning celebrates Access Bank Group, who has just been in Cameroon for just less than a year, but she is making great stride following the special recognition from the World Bank. We move on to this other story of Lloyd Sahel from the northern region of Gibe by Tama. For this morning, it says tribute to the life and death of Madame the Minister, former Minister of Basic Education, Hamana Dama. In that said publication, the locality of Mugode, where Abubakar Faiki is the new Lamido of that Lamidat over there in the northern parts of the country. A quotidian emergence for this morning reports on disparity in electricity supply between the rural and urban zones of Cameroon. The promotion of the banana plantain sector in the country, FBPC signs this partnership with La Regional Bank of the country. And the treatment of HIV and AIDS children has been given more priority after the donation of US aid from the United States of America. Prices of beer products will be having an increase in the days ahead. This follows the announcement from the brewery companies in the country. We take you to something else now. We move on to municipal updates of Victor Bamecham. For this morning, he talks of mitigating climate change effects on humanity for Robust Media Council Alliance. Get to read more on the council affair or municipal affairs newspaper of Victor Cham. Imported rice, government resists traders tampering with prices. And Northwest region, the moderator of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, the Right Reverend Funky Samuel Forba, urges principals of PCC schools to uphold standards. You get to read details on that publication for this morning. We move on to the next paper for today. That is the voice of Randy Josa. The voice for this morning report on press freedom, or DC hurdles eternalized. Get to read details on that publication for today. We take you to Bilingualism Commission. Secretary General promotes staff discipline and performance on May Day celebration. PM John Gute tightens grip on a tool to sign contract to sign contract with Lions technical staff. You get to read more on that story from the Star Building of the Republic of Cameroon. Away from that, let's move on to this other story from Eden from the Limbe for this morning. Talks of first ordinary council session of the Limbe City Council. Mayor Paul Efumengale scores high, outlines entire roadmap for the Limbe municipality. Get to read details on that publication. And we move on to this other story that talks of Camtel at 25 showcases strides meets a diplomacy added weight, and what rewards do not define a man. Get to read more on that intricacies from the Eden newspaper. The Museum of Stephen Ojong for this morning report on Fika Food Ministry of Sport and Physical Education standoff. Did PM Zion Kuti broker truce between Ito and Gombe? That's a big question that the publisher of the Museum, Stephen Ojong, is asking on his publication for today. Public investment budget for the Mehmet division of the Southwest region regarding the follow-up. It says Honorable Tabot Njala Lawson tells mayors, contractors to sit up. Get a bit more on that story from Mehmet division. Drum for majority peace development in the Northwest region. Old Town Boy, minister delegates at the Ministry of External Relations in charge of cooperation tasks with the Commonwealth, Felix Mbaye, United as and Kinyati of Mancon. This follows a special notable title that was given to him by the fund of Mancon and for the foot. We move on to 20th May venue in Yaoundé. Microfinance leader Tarikon Cooperative Union shines on May Day. You can find more on that set paper for today. Crossing over to Nigeria with the Nigerian National Prince, Nigerian Tribune for this morning. It says governors agreed to roll out implementable national minimum wage package that was stipulated by the federal government. Police parades a mastermind of Kaduna Abuja train attackers. Some 276 other suspects were being apprehended and showcased to the public. University admission, no decision, 18-year entry age according to the Senate of Nigeria. Nigerian News Direct for this morning talks of NDIC increase deposit insurance coverage for financial institutions. Minimum wage package, governors awaits committee decision assures workers of increase of wages. The Guardian from Lagos for this morning reports on how Doji officiated complicit club officials supported ruined games. In a said paper, victim lose 17.67 billion naira to fraudsters in 2023. Labour defend 615,000 minimum wage package proposed to federal government of Nigeria. New Telegraph for this morning says governors disagree with federal government on new minimum partial to personnel. Get to read more. That's a publication for today. Blueprint for this morning talks of Shetima at second Chronicle Roundtable Conference. That's the Vice President of Nigeria. With reform, Tinubu save Nigeria from imminent death. And in that said publication, troops kill 715 terrorists, arrest kill 464, kidnap victims. If you want to find more on the blueprint for this morning, the Punch for this day talks of fuel supply. 9,000 marketers may lost license according to the federal government's decision. 615,000 as minimum wage for Nigeria. Governors demand sustainable minimum wage. You get to read more on that publication. EFCC to move against schools charging in dollars. Get to read more on the Economic Crime Fighting Commission, known as EFCC in Nigeria. The Nation for this morning, states will pay only sustainable minimum wage, says governors. In that said paper, Army move against ambush killers of troops. We'll take you to the metrics. The metrics for this morning from Abuja says fight against corruption. Shetima, Vice President of Nigeria, spit fire. And federal government to move increase in terms of mining license fee to boost revenue. In that said publication, court adjourned case against Binance executive to May the 17, 2024. Daily Independent for this day, your days of roaring are over. Tinubu assures workers of Nigeria during May Day celebrations. And NLC TUC give federal government 1 week to reverse electricity tariff hike. We wrap up the program, this first phase of the program, with Business Day for this morning. The business paper from Lagos talks of trap in a scarce 150 million liter vessel behind the petrol scarcity. And coastal highway construction continues without approval from EIA. With Business Day, this is what put a pause on this first segment of the program. But to not move a muscle, who will be here for the second phase with our reviewer who is already present. Of the program reserved for our reviewer for this morning, and the program on air, of course, is Press Brief. Joining us for this morning is the young gentleman from the Further Estate, Busi Che. Good morning to you, Busi, and highly welcome.
Good morning, Larry. Good morning to all the viewers of High Television. It's a pleasure once more to be here, especially on this day dedicated to celebrating pressmen and press freedom.
All right, and with that, I say Happy Press Freedom Day.
Thank you, same to you.
All right, we move on to business. The first paper on our newsstands for this morning is the Guardian Post of Christian Gar. A paper reports on press freedom, the dark side of journalism in Cameroon. That is what you can find on the front page of that said paper of Christian Gar, and you can get the complete of that story on page 2, as the paper highlights 5 journalists were killed in the in unclear circumstances and in one of the gruesome ways that one can be killed. And we have one who is still incarcerated at the Condegin Maximum Security Prison. Chair, what do you make of this caption of Christian Gar for today?
I think it's just simply a look in the mirror at what journalism in Cameroon today is, and it's not only an attack from the state authorities, but as well from other individuals and as well opposition fronts, if I should put that in quotes. So journalism in Cameroon today is faced with so many challenges, just like all over the world. And I think a day like this is just a reminder where journalists can come and reflect to see what they are doing wrong, if at all, how they can do better, and how as well they can navigate through this terrain which is life-threatening. Because like the case of Martinez Zogo, he passed on last year. Yeah. Up till now, we still have the case.
It's more than a year.
Okay, a little above the year going to. We have the case still undergoing trial now, and there is a lot which has been unfolding from the case. A couple of businessmen across the country have been picked, allegedly having their hands or being part of the gruesome murder. Yeah. Now, we only have to keep waiting till the trial is over for the perpetrators of the crime to be laid punishment on. But for the meantime, I think World Press Freedom Day has come for us to reflect, to think it's not an easy road, but then it is necessary for the growth of the country.
All right, let's look at press freedom in the country. Many the government, for instance, will argue that there's a lot of press freedom in the country because their point is the multiplicity of media houses in the country. But on a scale within a phase of less than 5 years, we have 5 journalists who have been killed under unclear circumstances. The burning one is that of Martinez Zogo of Amplitude FM. You have late of Samuel Wazizi of CMTV, whose corpse is not yet been accounted for by the Cameroonian authority. We currently have that of late Reverend Father Jacques Ola Bebe. We have late they saw who worked with the advocate, as he was the regional correspondent of the Advocate newspaper of Tabetaya in Obika. We have that of this lady, that is a late Becky Njame Iyabo, who actually was killed by an EID that was detonated by the separatists over there in the Bengui, around Bengui, less to Momotivi of media practitioners who have gone beyond the world over. And when we look at the rating of Cameroon's standing in the world press freedom, or countries that practice world press freedom, is actually quite towards the bottom. So, is this actually a good signal, or should the government do the needful by making sure that the men and women of the further state are being provided with the adequate necessary skills?
It's a tough argument. To some practitioners, they think that the freedom is not actually is not there per se. To others, they think that the necessary allocations have been made for freedom in the practice of journalism in the country. So I'd argue that in Cameroon we have relative press freedom to an extent over other countries all over the world. Now, I will not want to go into that argument, but I want to say from this front page of the Guardian Post this morning, we see journalists who have been killed by both the two sides in the present context of war in English speaking Cameroon. That's the two sides, I'll just put it like that. So we see journalists who've been killed by
of the week following his visit to his subjects over there at the seat of power in Yaoundé, as he was accorded a traditional and hero's welcome to Yaoundé. So he is the personality of the week. How do you feel when you're found as the personality of the week?
Larry, personally, I am not the kind of person who attach so much to village. I'm first a Cameroon. Any other thing, at least for now, I'm this morning. It as well reflects a lot how far the traditional institutions of Cameroon have been able to navigate throughout the years with all the difficulties and challenges, even with the advent of the government. Mind you, the government came after, when traditional authority had been established. The kings were the presidents of their country before the advent of democracy, before the advent of government. So it's good to see how much the traditional authorities have been able to work hand in glove, but they are still able to collaborate. In fact, the government calls them auxiliaries to the state. In as much as that, there is as well still a lot of much need for traditional authorities to be considered today, and maybe thoughts that their House of Chief, as it's been called, it's not a House of Chiefs because they are not chiefs, but they are funds. That's a topic for another day. I think that's that.
All right. And we come back to World Press Freedom Day, because today is the day and we are giving it more preference. This time around, we take the copy of Randy Josa's paper, The Voice for this morning in Press Freedom Odyssey. It says hurdles, eternalize. It talks of intimidation, gagging, and crackdown, arbitrary arrest, detention, assassination, persist.
Journalism is not fashion, it's a vocation. Okay. It's a commitment to help the nation grow. Now, press freedom has been a debate which is reoccurrent, and just to add, Larry, we cannot talk about press freedom without talking about responsibility. I think sometimes this is where we get a little bit entangled. New thoughts about journalism, like peace journalism, will tell you that journalists as well as their editors should be able to make informed decisions such that their news stories do not only tell but help to build, help to foster peace, help to foster unity, help to foster nation building. That's as well an argument anyway. Not everybody agrees with the ordeals of peace journalism. However, I think the basis of journalism is to build the nation. In as much as we've had a couple of cases where journalists have been attacked, but we see sometimes that there is always a run off from the ethics and ontology of the profession, a stray away from that. And of course, when you're caught out of the fence, there's really not much you can do. However, whatever the case might be, I think journalism remains a respectable profession. That whatever brought to book, they shouldn't be unlawfully or better still, they shouldn't be murdered just so leaving their families behind, their wives, in fact everything, such that their families have to cry a lot. I think there is always a way, even if the journalists lose track of their responsibility, for them to be brought.
Now that comes on to the journalism syndicate, because in Cameroon, for instance, we have quite
a number of them.
A number of them. We don't know which one is talking, which one is relevant, which one is actually doing what. But unlike other countries like Ghana and in Nigeria just have the Nigerian Union of Journalists, and that is all. Yeah, and they act as a watchdog and the discipline of, and you cannot practice as a journalist in Nigeria without being a member of the Nigeria Union of Journalists, known as NUJ. Same thing in Ghana and South Africa. They just have one syndicate, and this syndicate is more powerful, more than what you can imagine. But unlike here in our own country, it's like we are not serious. So we see
I think
someone just leaves let's say from 5, or he's having his ordinary level. Before you know it, he tells you, "Did you hear me for that rate too?" So you can imagine. Say those are the journalists. So you can imagine. So if any quack, any Jack, Dick, Tom, or Harry prides himself as one.
I think the context, Larry, is an advanced way even of thinking.
Two systems.
An advanced way of thinking. I guess they've been able to integrate the language and the systems and the culture. But taking, for example, Nigeria and Cameroon, we're looking at the Anglo-Saxon and that of the French coming together. And it is, of course, the root cause of the problems which we're facing, which is the socio-political crisis in the Northwest and Southwest. I think to an extent, Larry, you agree with me that the practice of journalism in Yaoundé, for example, is a little bit different from the way the English would practice, especially when it concerns the print. Now, that's that. But I remember I've had discussions with a couple of older journalists, and they've explained stories of when they tried to merge together the two factions such that they could have a way forward. But they tried as much as they could, but they realized that it wasn't going through. They were not able to merge these two ways of thinking, ways of believing together. And I think to an extent, since the government may not have been behind ensuring that they really merge to come to a consensus because of its own personal interest it has, so the media remains fragmented, many more associations which are unable to deliver. And it reminds me of an address which was given by one journalism association to cease or to move on from just organizing seminars and meetings to doing concrete work such that journalism practice can be harmonized and there can be some standards and a way forward. I think it's really a call for concern, and we keep on hoping for the day where we all as journalists can swallow our ego and come together, and as well ensure that the field is well catered for and bring back prestige, which many say has been lost in the practice of the profession.
All right, I put this question to you. You were saying Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Canada, they are more advanced and all the likes. They don't speak, they have one system, right? So, but let's focus within the Cameroonian context. Let's take, for instance, the medicine corps. You know, they just have one syndicate, the National Council for...
But on the law, because for medicine, I could say medicine is universal all over the world. But law, we all know there is law, the civil law and the other, which of course do not correlate, but of course they're in the same association. So I think basically maybe it might just be people, journalists, being able to first of all decide we can do this. And mind you, Larry, I think the indecision of journalists all across the country is helping the government, because the more the journalists are fragmented, disunited, the more they cannot have a strong voice. As these people are saying their own thing and going the other way, these other people are dancing their own dancing, going. It's more like Samalikom kind of. And so I think all what is being done is to the best interest of the government, and it might not be too far from the truth saying that maybe some people have interest in all of these things, journalists themselves who feed fat from the disunity and the facts, the segmenting of the journalism core in Cameroon. I think maybe the days are coming, if we permit, where journalism practice would be integrated such that we can be one strong voice, and the more we are stronger, the more we can advocate for better press freedom.
All right, we remain with press freedom, this time around a copy of Lamekeyum. Lamekeyum talks of the freedom of the press in Cameroon. Justice for Martinez Zogo as is leading to the kidnapping, torture, and subsequent killing of the journalist and former station manager of the Yaoundé-based station, radio station, Amplitude FM, Martinez Zogo.
Maybe, first of all, Larry, this is just a food for thought.
Okay.
Was Martinez Zogo a radio animator or a journalist?
A journalist by training.
Okay.
Yeah, he attended the National School of Journalism and Mass Communication, known in French as ST.
Where my concern is, because maybe in the aspect, I think maybe as well little line should be drawn between this animator, what the animator does or says, and the practice of professional journalism, because we as well understand that there can be advocacy and there is journalism. Just like you can be maybe a peace advocate, that's not peace journalism.
Of course.
You can be a political advocate, that's not political journalism, though we seem to be merging everything together. However, I think whatever place you are at, even if you're getting it wrong, there is always a way we can go about this, and it might not necessarily be the hard way.
Okay.
We can as well tackle it through the legal dispositions which have been made available to ensure that there is as well a level of respect of law and order. Mind you, nobody should be above the law. Maybe I should correct that. Should be above the law. Nobody.
Nobody is above the law. Nobody.
You said that.
Yeah,
you said that.
That's more direct.
Okay. So I think there's always a manner of doing things, which even if these journalists or media practitioners should go out of the lane, there are always other correcting methods or measures which we can put in to ensure that they are corrected, but the media is not gripped by fear. Because what happened to Martinez Zogo, of course, gripped with fear the whole media family. Yeah. You don't know who is next, and you don't even know what you're saying wrong, and you don't actually know whether what you are saying might actually be attacking someone directly or indirectly, which the person is having a grievance against. And as well, Larry, there is no way I'll go back to say we talk about press freedom without talking about responsibility. Yeah. I think as journalists, we must remember as well to always be responsible. Sure. We must remember to be responsible, and this responsibility will mean us thinking and rethinking actions. You know, I had an interview with the peace journalist Ndasi Gilbert a year ago, and he told me, if you should do a story, Larry, as a journalist, and two people start fighting, rethink. If you should do a story.
Moving on to something different, this time around with the media newspaper. For this day, the paper of Stephen Ojon from Yaoundé says, Fecafoot Ministry of Sport and Physical Education standoff. This did Don Gute broker a truce between Samuel Eto'o and Narcisse Moelle Kombi? That's a big question you can find on that set of paper, and that publisher Stephen Ojon attempts for some answers on page 3 on that publication.
You know, I think Larry, there is so much, maybe that's my opinion, which we want to put into people's mouths to talk. This issue of Samuel Eto'o and the Fecafoot Fecafoot boss has been on, especially during the period when there was about the burial of his father, where he said we cannot attend the meeting because we are preparing, as though Fecafoot is just a one-man show. Away from that, I think there is a lot which may be happening which we don't have a clear comprehension of, and there are lots of rumors. In as much as rumors can tickle us to think about the real facts, but I think most times or sometimes it tends to be misleading, and people trying to put a lot of words, put a lot of meaning, just decide to sit quiet, just decide to be on their lane, but
minding their business.
But now, as they're trying to mind their business, some people still put a lot of unofficial statements yet from either the president of the Cameroon Football Federation, Fecafoot Samuel Eto'o, or the Ministry of Sports of Narcisse Muele Kombi. So for the time being, as they are quiet, let's just be quiet. Let football in this country breathe.
And let the sleeping dog lie.
Of course.
Okay, moving on to quotidian mentions for this day. Quotidian mentions report on electricity disparity supply in the country. The paper gives a disparity between Aurora and Oban zone of Cameroon. When power outages are quite is now becoming something normal across Cameroon.
I think Larry, that's just a basic. To say what I want to say is just a basic. Maybe what makes an area rural in our context and what makes an area urban is electricity, because I think to an extent this is one reason why development has not gone to these areas, because people want to set up industries, but they think about where they'll get power from and they don't have power. They think about motorable access, they don't have it, and all of that. That's what continues to make these places enclave. We are at a time where we are thirsty yet being by the ocean. We have a couple of projects to supply electricity to all of the country which have been inaugurated, and we've been told that we have the capacity to supply. We are making this and this megawatts, this and this, but we continue to have this shortage. I want to call it inadequate supply of electricity. I think it is very important, especially at the time we are at, because power is one key factor when it concerns development and economic growth. If there is no electricity, we will not be on air now. She's idling. If there is no if there's no electricity, most likely the income being made by MTN goes down, because many lesser people are online, and so they cannot consume data for them to cut at times and to do what they keep on doing. Now, if there's no electricity, the person running the grinding mill cannot operate. If there's not electricity, other key components, factories and the rest are on shutdown. You go to places they tell you there's no electricity, and there's a long line of people waiting for you. You go at the bank today, even e-money, everything has gone digital. That electricity has become an essential part of life and economic growth. I think it is a factor which we must take cognizance of. If we country, then I think we would be 2 steps ahead in terms of economic growth, in terms of emergence by 2035, because a lot, I tell you a lot, Larry, rises and falls on electricity or power supply.
Sure. And we take you now to the paper of Thierry Diaga, Mutation, for this morning. Mutation talks of citizenship. It says why you need to get registered and vote, according to the paper of Thierry Diaga of Mutation for today. We are seeing this phenomenon, this situation where there is a mass increase in the number of Cameroonians going to elections, Cameroon voting agent to get their names registered on the electoral list or electoral register for as general elections has been slated for next year. And now the publisher of that publication, Mutation, says the reason why you need to get registered and vote.
I think there has been a level of sensitization which is being done and continues to be done on the media, on the conventional media, on the social media, and it's very important, because whether you vote or you don't vote, Larry, whoever is elected has power over you.
Sure.
Now, I think this morning I was going through some articles, and I saw that where civil society organizations in the southwest, or in Boya, yesterday were asking during a meeting for some electoral processes to be reviewed. I think at a time like this, these are the issues which we should try to review. Now, I was listening to national radio some days ago, and the director general of Elecam was on air, Eric Esose, and he was clarifying. I think it was with Albert Njembonde, and now there was a peculiar issue, which was that of registration on weekends and on Sunday.
Okay.
And the director general of Elecam said it was not legal to register on Sunday. And he already said let the Laker workers go to church. I don't know if the
churches are on Sunday.
I don't know if they told him they were Christians. Anyway, Larry, here is my point. To the best of my knowledge, elections. Or maybe I should ask the question just to be very sure.
Right.
Which day do most often do elections hold in this country?
It's on Sunday.
So it's legal to go and vote on Sundays, but it's illegal for Elecam to carry out registration on Sundays. So I think those are just points which we need to reflect on. It's legal with parental consent for an 18-year-old to join the military, but it's not legal for an 18-year-old to carry to partake in elections out in our context. And if we have to empower youth to the extent that they can be leaders of today or maybe tomorrow, whichever we choose, then we need to review this. Because I think to an extent, whenever I go to a place and they talk about youth, I just say, because
old people
because 40, 50 in Cameroon, they are youths.
Of course, I wasn't surprised when an old man a top official in Yaoundé says he's a youth. I said, okay, if this guy is a youth, then I'm a baby.
and I'm like, what is the measurement which is used to determine who a youth is in our context? Because you need to get very old before you try to think that you can partake, or you can vote, or you can be voted, and all of that. And that's why at the end of the day we keep bringing in people who come at a certain age and they are already on their way out, and they stay there till they are worn out.
They do them part.
They do them part.
Okay.
I think generally it's an impressive work Elecam is doing, but I think we need to go back to the drawing board. And I think to an extent it comes back to us, the people at the grassroots, because the laws can be reviewed.
Sure.
And they've been reviewed by Parliament, and Parliament is made up by those we send there. Now, if we keep voting people who go in day in and out, clap their hands, sleep, and collect heavy envelopes and come and loiter around when there is a disaster or something around the community, that's when they show up.
They come there with cameras.
Yeah, very heavy cameras, which may end up the pay they give that may end up being more than what they are even doing. You see that at the end of the day we'll keep on having this same cycle over and over again. So I think the ball affects our future.
And by so doing, you need to get registered.
Sure. That's where you start from, getting registered and ensuring you vote.
Definitely. We'll move on to the municipal affairs newspaper. Municipal updates of Victor for this day talks of mitigating climate change effects on humanity. Time for robust media. That is what Victor is advocating on his paper for this morning.
Larry, I am very much interested in you see, the theme of the World Press Freedom Day this year is peculiar, especially to nature enthusiasts and you name it. It's true, some people might have a little argument or worry about it, but then I think it's a call for concern. Maybe I deviate a little bit, still in the context. I would want to address this issue of the press tackling issues concerning the environment, and it's an issue which maybe to an extent most of us are guilty of. Now, first of all, to say one of the issues which in an exchange I had with an environmentalist in climate, wherein places which were hot or places are becoming hotter than they were before.
A good example is Boya.
Yes.
Yeah,
these days it's becoming very hot, and we're having floods in areas where there were not floods before. That's just the Dubai issue is more man-made. There are some other
No,
intricacies.
look at this flood. Look at it. This flood is amounting as a result of torrential rains.
Okay, let's leave it at that.
So you just see how Dubai was inundated.
Yeah, it was almost swallowed all up. The journalist or journalism is to communicate, because the population may not or do not understand these changes which we're having. They're not everybody is
aware.
informed about the change in all of that, the climate change, the heat waves, and all of the big drama. So now the role of the journalist is an intermediary between the climatologists and all the environmental specialists, and then the rest of the population, to communicate these changes such that humans can be able to fit in, know what to do, cope, and maybe as well, if there is a means of adverting, maybe by planting trees and you name them, they can be able to do that. Now, in follow-up to that, I had an exchange with a communication researcher, and he said journalism or journalists or media or institutions need to stop raising concern about environment only when there is a disaster.
Okay.
Like the Boya flash floods. All of us are like, oh, environment, up, down, center.
Now it hasn't happened.
Everybody is just quiet.
They-
Rainy
they are
season is
seeing-
coming only when we have some 18 rooms or so down there is flooded. Then we put it on the news. But when there is no events, we simply just stay quiet. We stay mute. but when
It's quite
environment
paradoxical.
environment is something which we need to continuously report on, because it creates an awareness with the population,
Sure.
a behavioral change, an attitudinal change, and all of that happens such that the population know what to do, when to do, how to do, and why they are doing it. And generally, he told me that now journalism institutions as well on their part, because most time, Larry, journalism is just given as a full loaf of fufu, or a full lump of bread or something put down straight into the throat, and this issue of specialization is not being brought in.
Yeah.
So journalists who are trained maybe in the most of our journalism training institutions don't have the touch of specialization, but they are just one size fits all. So they are not more environmental journalists than they are health reporters, than the economic reporters. They just blend all, anything they see, they are just blending.
In French, we call it impede.
So he talked about specialization for journalism institutions to give a touch, such that journalists are living with an awareness, with an idea, with a perspective, with a mindset, with a passion, with a nursed and informed passion for environmental activities, such that when they go into the field, they are not only just, they'll be able to perform adequately to the needs we are facing in terms of our environment.
All right, and that is something that we need to take quite with a lot of seriousness and with a lot of firmness, according to you and according to that paper from Victor. For this day, we move away from Cameroon. Let's visit next door Nigeria. This time around, we start with the Nigerian tabloids. The Nigerian Tribune for this morning talks of governors agrees to roll out implementable national minimum wage after Nigeria's president Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu announced that there will be a 36% increase in the minimum wage package in Nigeria, and as such, this will give rise to the minimum wage being to the tune of close to 200 and something naira, where when we convert it to Cameroon, I think it's close to 180 francs CFA, which is
180,000 francs.
okay, 180,000 francs, which is something that is quite
Impressive. Yeah, I think it's good. We're still around 40 something thousand, still to go to 50, not talking of getting
despite the high cost of living.
Despite the high cost of living, I think that's even the general cause for poverty in and around, because the minimum wage rate, when it's put down, you don't expect, some employers don't even respect that thing. So when it's put down, you're even giving a red feather for people to continue violating the rights of laborers. I think Tinubu is trying his best. He admits so much of criticism. I would just think that we keep on watching him to see how much he's able to turn the Nigerian economy. I think economy is not an issue wherein in a day or overnight you cause a significant change, a paradigm shift. No, it takes time, it takes process, and during these processes it pains before you finally pay off. But increasing this minimum wage rate, if we want to compare with Cameroon, then we still have a long way to go, which of course we do. I just think it's laudable, and we just need to keep on watching Tinubu to see, though it's a little bit difficult, especially for the Nigerian economy, to see what he makes of them, especially as with the few years he has to handle issues at the helm of that state.
And by May 29, he will be clocking 1 year.
It's been a challenging year. We've heard him time and again on the media. I think Tinubu, let's just give him some more time. By the end of his mandate, that's 4 years. See how much he's been able to do. But then economic changes, and sometimes this transformation, it takes more than 4 years for you to really see what has been done.
Sure.
There are things which only after 10, 20 years you'd be able to say, no, this person actually did well. I'm by no means campaigning for Tinubu, but I'm not.
You look like an advocate.
I'm not. I'm just.
A militant of the
No, I'm just saying that it's 1 year. We cannot start drawing conclusion or closing our books. We just have to keep observing and see what it ends by the end of his mandate.
All right, so let's move over to Daily Independent, another Nigerian tabloid. It says, "Your days of worrying are over." Tinubu assures workers during May Day celebration.
If he adds up to about 30%, a 30% increase,
36.
or 36% increase, then
I
I think.
Cameroon, we are having, is it 2% or is?
But anyway, you'd notice that
Or it's
increase
5%. No,
increase to
let's be frank. What was the recent?
that was quite minimal. I think for me it was around 30,000 or thereabout.
No,
which was moved
the
to-
percentage. The percentage is what I'm focusing. I think
that
it's
might be
2%
far
or
off for me
5%.
to get, but it wasn't quite significant. It wasn't too significant compared to this, but in our context, it was significant. At least they say half bread is better than two puff
Are
puff
you
Larry.
sure?
What?
Yeah.
I think, but to an extent, we should not forget that the Nigerian currency has gone down.
Yeah, the naira has
So
appreciated much.
with that 30 something percent which they've added, it might not be too significant in the context of Nigeria with their present economic situation. It may not be too significant, but I think whatever the case, up to 36%. In as much as the present devaluation, I think to an extent it will be up to something, and we can just keep our fingers crossed. I think that's what we have to do at this point in time, and watch what Tinubu can make of the Nigerian economy.
As he is known as a chakaban. All right, so when we move away from the Nigerian tabloid, let's come back home with the last publication. For today, we focus on French man Hervé Renard, who talks of he has not been in with talks with agents from Samuel Eto'o after the executive body of Cameroon FA, Fecafoot, gave Samuel Eto'o 42 hours to hire another head coach after Narcisse Melecombe of Sports and Physical Education hired the Belgian tactician Marc Brice, and so that still Samuel hasn't done anything for discussion with the hiring of French tactician Hervé Renard.
Now, Fecafoot continues to, for the past 2 years or so, after food in this country, Fecafoot has become the most mentioned word. I tell you, we've debated about issues regarding Fecafoot. Samuel Eto'o go up, Samuel Eto'o came down, went south, went west, and this whole issue of the new coach brought again another fire to the whole discussion, and they are outing for the appointment of their own coach. It's really been a time where I think Samuel Eto'o has been able to become a very good news source for the journalists, to give them enough information to keep talking about the federation. However, I think we say in PG, not enough pass arrangement.
Okay.
It's as well they point out an illegitimacy in the work of Narcisse Melecombe. However, I think it's maybe time, or maybe so or thereabout for the football federation and the sports ministry to come together and have a clear cut definition. You see, Larry, I think it's a general problem. In one of the interviews Samuel Eto'o had with an international media, where he named the president of the republic the number one sportsman, the only person who has the powers to appoint a coach, to full-fledged be in it, other activities which the ministry should be doing, which we think the ministry should be doing. I think sometimes some of this organizations are created so that there is division of labor, there is division of power, but at the end of the day, everything still goes back to a centralized system. I think we have a very long way to go.
And this explains the reason why FIFA has been suspending Cameroon and bringing normalization committees. We have had several of them.
I think we must be able to let go football so that it should grow. The government should be able to empower the football federation to the extent that they should be able to carry out their own decisions and do things. I know sports